Hey there, restaurant recipe lovers. Welcome back to The Daily Dish, a copycat.com podcast where I help you recreate your favorite restaurant dishes right in your own kitchen. I'm Stephanie Manley, and I've been cooking up recipes since 1995. Before we dive into today's mouth-watering recipe, I want to send a big thank you to all of you who've been whipping up our recipes and sharing those amazing photos across social media. Those tags, comments on the blog really do brighten my day and keep me motivated to bring you more delicious content. Don't forget, you can find the complete written recipe of today's recipe on copycat.com. There's a convenient link in the show notes for this episode. That way, you'll have easy access to all the measurement, helpful photos, and step by step instructions. Now, today we are talking about one of my absolute favorites, especially when you want something a little bit lighter at Popeyes, and that's Popeyes Blackened Chicken. These juicy and boldly spiced tenders bring all that authentic Cajun flavor right to your own kitchen without having to go through the drive-through line or taking the hit to your wallet. What makes these tenders so special is that it starts with a simple brine that locks in moisture, followed by a generous coating of Cajun spices that create their signature blackened exterior that we all love from Popeyes. The best part, you can adjust the heat level if you desire, and that's something you can't do in the restaurant. Let's talk about what you're going to need for this recipe. You're going to need 1.5 pounds of chicken tenders, a tablespoon of salt for the brine, a tablespoon of sugar for the brine, 4 cups of cold water. That's again for the chicken brine. And I recommend 3 teaspoons of McCormick Cajun seasoning blend. Now, if you want to make your own seasoning blend, I'll go over that in just a second. And you're also going to need a couple of tablespoons of vegetable oil. Now, Popeyes actually deep fries these when you order them. I know it's a shock, but that's how they cook them. So we are actually going to take a quick variation on the recipe, and we are going to pan fry these with a little bit of vegetable oil. Now, you can use olive oil or avocado oil or a different type of oil if that's your thing. Feel free to do that. But that's how we're gonna make them. So just a little bit of a shift there. Most people I find don't like to deep fry in their own home, so we're gonna pan fry them. So let's talk about your own Cajun spice blend. Now, I really, really recommend the McCormick Cajun seasoning. And I actually recommend the one that comes in the industrial size. I think it is 14 or 10 ounces. You get it in a big plastic jug. You can get that at Gordon's, at Amazon, or a restaurant food supply place. This has a really good flavor, a very um, bold Cajun flavor. And actually, it's the blend that Wingstop uses. So just you could grab it for that. I think it's great. But if you don't want to do that, I recommend making up a spice blend. It's going to make a little bit more than what you're going to need, but you could use it on something else. A half a tablespoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of cayenne pepper. If you like your spicier, feel free to add more. 1.5 teaspoons of paprika, 3/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 3 teaspoons of ground black pepper, a quarter teaspoon of oregano, and 3 teaspoons of onion powder. Obviously, you're not going to need that much of a spice for this recipe, but it's really hard to make less. So I'll say that. So if you make it, store it in an airtight jar and put it in your spice cupboard until you need some more Cajun spices. All right. So to make this, it's really, really simple, but there are a few steps that are going to make all the difference. We are going to start by making a brine. Put the 4 cups of cold water with the tablespoon of salt, the tablespoon of sugar, and stir until everything's dissolved. And then you're going to add your 1.5 pounds of chicken tenders to this mixture. Make sure they're fully submerged. Cover the bowl and refrigerate it for at least 30 minutes. You could leave it up. You can leave it in your refrigerator for up to 2 hours if you like. Don't leave it for longer. It's really not going to improve it that much. So, a couple hours, you can prep it. Now, while the chicken's brining, if you need to make your own Cajun spice blend, just measure out all those ingredients, put them in a bowl, and you're going to use those to sprinkle those over. Now, when you're ready to cook, you're going to remove your chicken tenders from the brine, pat them dry with paper towels. You need to dry them because if not, and you put those into the pan with the hot oil, you're going to get splattered. Not a good idea. So dry them. And also, if it's too wet, that seasoning's not going to stick anyway. So we need to pat them dry. Now, I use 3 teaspoons of the McCormick Cajun seasoning blend. You can use whatever you feel comfortable with, but I like mine heavily seasoned. Now, to cook them, I like to use a cast iron skillet. I think things brown best in cast iron. So get your cast iron skillet, put it up to like medium high, and put your vegetable oil in there and let it get warm. Then you are going to cook the tenders for about 3 to 4 minutes on the first side. You're going to see that the edges become opaque as they cook. Flip them over and cook for another 3 to 4 minutes on the second side. The internal temperature should be 165 degrees. If you don't have a meat thermometer, which I highly recommend investing in, cut the thickest part of the tender and make sure that the meat is done. You don't want any pink in the chicken. When done cooking, transfer your chicken tenders to a plate lined with paper towels. This helps to absorb any excess oil, and then let them rest for 2 to 3 minutes before serving. This resting time is important because it allows the juices to redistribute throughout the meat, resulting in more flavorful, juicy tenders. Now, if you notice that the chicken tenders, if you're trying to flip them over and that they're sticking to the pan, that means they're not done. You need to let them cook a little bit more. I know when I was a beginner cook, I used to try to rush the cooking process. It takes the time that it takes. So if it's sticking to the pan, wait in a couple more minutes before you try flipping it again. The meat will release from the pan when it is done. Okay, so these versatile tenders can be the star of so many meals. Serve them as is with or with a dipping sauce. My Popeyes Blackened Ranch dipping sauce. I recommend that. I'll put a link in the show notes. But you could use ranch or honey mustard or, Frank's Red Hot sauce, whatever you like. You can also slice these up for salads, stuff them into wraps or sandwiches, or even chop them up for tacos. One batch of cooking can easily transform into several meals throughout the week. It's a huge time and money saver. Speaking of sides, this pairs beautifully with homemade versions of my other Popeyes copycat recipes. I am on for their Cajun rice and their red beans and rice that I definitely recommend. Or you can keep it simple with a side salad and some roasted vegetables if you'd like a lighter option. For those of you meal prepping or cooking for smaller households, these tenders keep well in the refrigerator for about 3 days when stored in an airtight container. To reheat them without them drying out, place them on a wire rack over a baking sheet in a 375-degree oven for about 10 or so minutes. Turning halfway through, they'll crisp right back up without losing their juiciness. I don't recommend microwaving them because they'll lose that wonderful texture that makes them so special. So there you have it. Restaurant quality Popeyes blackened chicken tenders made right in your own kitchen, saving you money while giving you the flexibility to adjust the flavors exactly to your taste. Remember, you can get the complete recipe with all the measurements and detailed instructions on copycat.com or by clicking the link in the show notes for this episode. Until next time, this is Stephanie Manley from copycat.com, helping you bring the restaurant experience at home. Why go out when you can make it at home?